My parents took me to a rooftop restaurant for my 35th. We're moving your 1.9M inheritance fund to your brother. Mom said, he has a real family. You just have yourself. I cut my steak and asked, does Grandpa know you copied his signature? Dad's smile vanished when I opened the candle on our table did not flicker when my mother said it. And that was the first strange thing about the evening. 42 floors up, glass on 3 sides, wind you could hear moving behind the music, and the flames stood perfectly still. The way flames stand only inside restaurants that have paid a lot of money to feel like they are outdoors without being outdoors. My knife made a clean sound on the plate. My father was smiling at his water glass like he had told a joke, and the water glass had laughed. My brother Trevor was checking his phone under the edge of the tablecloth. My mother had already put her fork down. The Meridian sits on top of a bank tower downtown. My parents had chosen it for my 35th. That was the first thing they had chosen for me in 7 years. I should have noticed that. I noticed the candle instead. We're moving your 1.9 million to your brother, my mother said, and she said it the way she used to tell me dinner was ready. Flat, warm on the edges. Practiced, Trevor did not look up from his phone. His wife Heather sat next to him wearing the earrings I did not recognize. My father lifted his wine glass and studied the color like he was thinking about a purchase. Say something, Miles. I cut another piece of ribeye. Medium rare. I put it in my mouth and I chewed, and I looked at the way the wine had left a red arc on the inside of my father's glass. I had been on this rooftop once before. When I was 28, Grandpa William brought me here for my birthday. He wore his blue suit. He ordered the same ribeye. He handed me a small leather case at the end of the meal, and inside was the Parker 51 fountain pen with his name on the barrel. For William, 1968, he said, you already know how to sign your name, Miles, but now you have the pen that made me a man who never had his name copied. I chewed. I swallowed. I set the knife down on the edge of the plate the way Grandpa had shown me. Never in the sauce. Never crossed. He has a real family, my mother said. You just have yourself. The couple at the next table stopped talking. The woman had a fork lifted halfway to her mouth. She lowered it slowly and looked at her plate. Her husband kept his eyes on his water. The waiter, who had been coming toward us with the peppermill, did a small turn on his heel and went to another table instead. The candle did not move. I finished chewing. I took a sip of water. I almost said the sentence the way I had rehearsed it in the elevator on the way up, calm and short, and then I did not. I said something smaller. I said, does Grandpa know you copied his signature? My father's smile did not vanish right away. That is a thing people say. Smiles do not vanish. They freeze. They forget what they are doing. His did that first. The corners were still turned up, but the eyes had left them behind. My mother's fingers found the stem of her wine glass and stopped moving. Trevor put his phone face down on the tablecloth. Heather looked at Trevor. Trevor did not look back. I reached under my chair. I lifted a slim black case onto the empty bread plate at my elbow. Not a folder, not an envelope, a hard-shell forensic case, the kind I carry to depositions with a small brass latch. My father's eyes went to it and stayed there. What is that? He said. Not a question, a stall. It is my work, I said. You knew what I do for a living. You forgot to remember. I examine documents for a living. That is the short version. The long version has a certification from the American Society of Question Document Examiners, a lab and a converted textile mill on 6th Street, 3 microscopes, 1 video spectral comparator that cost more than my car, and 13 years of testifying in probate courts, insurance disputes, contested wills, and the occasional criminal matter. I look at signatures. I look at pens. I look at ink dry time and stroke pressure, and the little tremor a hand makes when it is trying to be someone else's hand. I have 3 published papers. My rate is $400 an hour, and I turn down more work than I take. My parents told people I was a paper pusher. That is what my mother wrote on the family Christmas card in December. Trevor is expanding the family business. Miles is still pushing papers. I got 2 copies in the mail. One came from her. One came from an aunt who thought I should see it. I have been living alone in a 2-bedroom near the university since my divorce 4 years ago. No children. No dog. One woman I see on Sundays who does not want more than Sundays yet. A pen collection that is small and specific. 6 pens. Only one of them matters. The Parker 51 lives in a wooden tray on my desk, next to a picture of Grandpa William at his workbench. He built cabinets for 40 years. He also bought 7 small commercial buildings in the 60s and 70s and held them until they were worth what they are worth now. That is where the $1.9 million was supposed to come from. My share of a trust he set up when I was 21, funded from the sale of one of those buildings, held in his living trust, distributable to me at 40 or on his death, whichever came first. Trevor got a smaller trust, $240,000. Trevor turned it into $110,000 inside 3 years and then asked our parents to keep the rest of my shares safe in case Miles isn't ready. That is the phrase they used. Ready? Grandpa William turned 83 the year I turned 32. He forgot my mother's name at Easter. He forgot his own kitchen in July. By September, he was in a memory care unit on the north side of the city called Willomark. My mother said, "You do not need to visit. He does not know who anyone is anymore." I visited anyway. 14 months I have been going. Every Tuesday afternoon and every other Saturday morning. Grandpa does not always know my name, but he knows the smell of the pen when I take the cap off. He watches my hand when I write in his notebook. He gets very quiet and very still. Once, in April, he put his finger on the barrel and said, "That was mine." His voice was clear for 1 second, and then it went again. Trevor has not visited once. That is the part that mattered later. Back at the table, my father found his voice. He always finds his voice second. My mother goes first, the words go where she sends them, and then he catches up with the version that makes it sound reasonable. "Miles," he said, "this is a conversation your mother and I have been planning to have with you. Your grandfather asked us to help him restructure things. He wants Trevor to have the resources to raise a family. You do not have a family. That is not an insult. That is a fact. William made a choice. We are honoring it." I opened the brass latch on the case. The sound was small. The couple at the next table heard it. So did the 2 women at the round table behind Trevor. So did the waiter, who was back within earshot with a bottle of red I had not ordered. "When did Grandpa ask you to help him restructure things?" I said. "Last month," my father said. "Which day?" "Miles, which day, Dad?" My mother said. "The 11th. "The 11th of what?" "October," my mother said. She was steady. She had been rehearsing. I took a document out of the case. 1 page. I did not slide it across the table. I set it face up on the tablecloth between the salt cellar and my water glass. My father leaned forward without meaning to. His body leaned before his face caught up. "That is a nursing note from Willowmark Memory Care," I said. October 11th. Grandpa William did not know what year it was. He asked for his mother. His mother has been dead since 1979. He soiled himself twice that morning. He did not speak in complete sentences for the entire shift. The nurse who wrote this note has been at Willowmark for 9 years. Her name is on the bottom. Her supervisor co-signed it. She writes a note every shift. There are 117 of them since Grandpa was admitted. I have all of them. The candle did not flicker. The couple at the next table had stopped pretending not to listen. The woman had put her fork down flat on the tablecloth. The waiter with the wine bottle had moved behind a decorative planter and was still there. My mother made a small sound in her throat. Not a word. A place where a word almost went and did not go. "Restructuring," I said. "You had my grandfather restructure a $1.9 million trust on the same afternoon he was asking for a dead woman." My father sat back in his chair. His hand went to his wine glass. He did not lift it. He put his finger on the stem and left it there. "You have no idea what you are looking at," he said. "I look at documents for a living, Dad. You look at pieces of paper. That's the same thing. You know what I mean. I do. Before I go further, if this story is hitting you in the chest, Hit subscribe to Family Secret Tales and stay with me. Chapter 1 was the toast. Chapter 2 is the pen. My mother tried to move the room. That is the thing she does. When a conversation goes somewhere she did not send it, she stands up a little bit inside her seat and shifts her voice half a note higher, and the whole table has to reorganize around her. Miles, sweetheart, this is your birthday. It is. We wanted to give you good news. What good news? Trevor has a plan for the fund. He is going to hold it as family capital. You will still benefit. When you have your own children, we will discuss what makes sense at that time. We are not cutting you out. We are being practical. The word practical is a word my mother has used on me since I was 9. Practical was not going to summer camp because Trevor had baseball. Practical was the used car when I turned 16 and Trevor's new one when he turned 16 2 years later. Practical was medical school for Trevor, which he never finished, and community college for me, which I finished with honors while I worked at a printing shop, learning what real ink does when it lands on real paper. Mom, I said, yes, honey, the signature on the trust amendment. Whose is it? Your grandfather's. Which one of you moved his hand? The couple at the next table did not pretend anymore. The woman turned her chair a quarter turn toward us. Her husband stayed facing forward, but his eyes had moved. Trevor spoke for the first time. Trevor speaks the way people who have never been told to shut up speak. He speaks like the words are furniture he is entitled to walk on. Miles, grow up. William wanted this. William has always wanted this. He told me himself last summer at the lake. Last summer at the lake. Yes, Grandpa did not go to the lake last summer, Trevor. He was in Willowmark. He has been in Willowmark since September of last year. You have not visited him a single time. Trevor's face did a thing I have not seen on Trevor's face before. It was very quick. He recovered. I meant the summer before, he said. You did not. You are trying to twist this. I am asking you which lake. Trevor did not answer. Heather picked up her water glass. She set it back down. Heather has always been kind to me in small ways that never cost her anything. She did not look at me now. She looked at the space between the salt cellar and the folded napkin. My father tried again. Miles, we can have this conversation in the morning. In private. This is a public place. It is a public place, Dad. That is correct. I lifted the second document out of the case. This one had a blue tab on the top right corner. I laid it next to the nursing note. Then I lifted the Parker 51 out of the case's fabric loop. I took the cap off. I set the cap on the tablecloth. Ink smelt like the color blue. Grandpa's specific blue. Waterman's Serenity blue. I have been buying it in bottles of 50 milliliters since I was 12. This is the signature you had notarized on October 11th at 3:15 in the afternoon, I said. This is the signature of William Booker on his 1972 marriage license. This is his signature on the mortgage he took out on the 6th Street building in 1977. This is his signature on my birthday card from 2019, which is the last time he signed something and knew what he was signing. Look at the pressure on the initial upstroke. Look at the way the W sits down on its own tail. Look at where he lifts the pen between the M and the B. Now look at yours. There is no lift between the M and the B. He always lifted. He lifted because he had a small tremor in his index finger since he broke it in the shop in 1984. Everybody in this family knew about that tremor except whoever forged his name. My mother's fingers came off the wine glass. She put them on the tablecloth. They stayed there. Miles, my father said. That is not proof of anything. Signatures change. Signatures do change, Dad. They get shakier as people get older. This one is steadier than the one from 2019. The steadiness went the wrong direction. That is the tell. Whoever practiced this signature practiced from the good ones, not the recent ones. The wine that the waiter had almost brought was now on a side table across the room. The waiter was standing very still with his hands folded in front of him. He was watching. He was going to remember this. You did not know I could see this, I said, because you have decided for 35 years that I do not see anything. My father recovered the way he always recovers. He got mean. You want to know why, Miles? You want to know why your grandfather chose Trevor? Because you are almost 40 with no wife, no children, no life outside a lab that smells like old paper. William came from a generation that built things. He wanted his money going where it would continue. Trevor has a son. Trevor has a family name to pass on. You have a fountain pen and a woman you see on Sundays. Do you understand? You are a dead end. That is not a moral judgment. That is a resource decision. The couple at the next table stopped eating. The woman touched her mouth with her napkin. The husband made a very small movement with his head. It was not agreement. It was a person hearing something they did not want to hear said out loud. Trevor said, "Dad." Dad said, "No, Trevor." He wanted to know. Heather stood up. She said, "I need the restroom." She walked past our table without looking at Trevor. Her heels made a specific sound on the marble, the sound of a woman leaving something and not sure she is coming back. My mother did not turn her head to watch Heather go. My mother watched me. I picked up the Parker 51. I unscrewed the pen. I set the ink cartridge next to the cap. I picked up the third document out of the case, then the fourth, then the fifth. I put them down one at a time. I did not stack them. I laid them out in a row like a hand of cards. "This is the trust amendment you notarized in October," I said. "This is the beneficiary designation change on the Macaulay Street building you filed in September. This is the change of address form for the trust correspondence filed in August that had Grandpa's mail redirected to your P.O. box in Fairview. This is the request for a distribution of $235,000 from the trust dated last April, before the amendment. All of them are signed William D. Booker. All of them have the same tell. Trevor's phone number is listed on this one as the contact number for the trust." Trevor's. Trevor said, "Miles, come on." I said, "I am not talking to you yet, Trevor." My mother finally spoke. She had been building it in her chest. When it came out mean, and mean was the wrong choice. "You know what your problem is, Miles. You are jealous. You have been jealous of your brother since the day he was born. You cannot stand that people love him and people tolerate you. You have taken your grandfather's confusion and you have turned it into a weapon. William would be ashamed of you. He always said you were the sensitive one. Sensitive is the word he used when he meant weak." The woman at the next table did something small. She reached across her own table and touched her husband's hand. Not a squeeze. A single small tap. The way a person taps another person to say, "Are you seeing this?" I almost answered her the way she wanted. In her language, the language of grievance and inventory. I did not. I looked at my mother for a long time. Longer than I thought I would. Long enough that the candle finally did what candles do and made a small dip. Ordinary. Not a movie candle. A real one. "Grandpa never used the word sensitive about me," I said. "He did, Miles. He said, Miles is the one who watches. That is what he said. He said it in front of you. You are misremembering because it fits what you have decided about me. Watches is a different word from sensitive." My father said, "This is unbelievable. It is his birthday, and he is having a psychiatric episode." The waiter across the room did not move. The couple at the next table did not move. 2 more tables had noticed us now. A man in a gray suit had turned his whole chair around to see. I put my hand on the edge of the case. I said, "There is one more thing in here. Would you like to see it before I ask my next question, or after?" My father said, "Before." He should have said after. I opened the flap in the lid of the case. I took out a single page, and I laid it in the middle of the row. It was heavier paper than the others. It had a seal in blue embossed at the top. It had my grandfather's signature at the bottom and a different pen, different ink, older. It had a date from 4 years ago. It had a notary stamp from a firm in Cleveland where my grandfather grew up. "This is a trust protector clause," I said. My grandfather added it to his living trust 4 years ago. He never told anyone in this family about it. He drove to Cleveland by himself, and he had it notarized by a lawyer his mother used to work for. The clause says that if any amendment is made to his trust after he loses testamentary capacity, and the amendment redirects distributions from any named beneficiary to any other party, that amendment is void, and the redirected portion transfers immediately and irrevocably to the affected beneficiary as sole successor trustee of the reformed trust. That is what a poison pill clause does. It is a trap for people who cannot help themselves. My grandfather said it because he saw both of you very clearly, for a very long time before his mind started to go. Silence took the table. Then it took the tables around us. The couple at the next table had not moved in a full minute. The waiter had put his hands behind his back. The man in the gray suit was still turned around. My father's hand slid off the stem of the wine glass. It slid without him meaning it to. It landed on the tablecloth and he did not pick it up. His face went a color I have seen a color once before, on a witness during a deposition, when the witness realized the document I was holding was going to end his marriage. A color under skin, not on top of it. Trevor said, "Dad." Dad did not answer. Mom said, "Miles, that is not a real document." "It is a real document, Mom. I have the original in a lockbox at my lab. That one is a certified copy. I filed a claim under the clause this morning at 9:30 a.m. at the district probate court. The $1.9 million transferred out of the trust and into a new account under my sole trusteeship at 11:04 this morning. It happened 3 hours before you sat down at this table. It happened before you asked the waiter for the wine list." Trevor stood up. He sat back down. He stood up again. He did not know what his body was doing. "You cannot do this," my mother said. "I have already done it. We will fight this. You will lose." "Miles, baby, please do not call me baby, Mom," Trevor said. "This is our family." I looked at Trevor. I said, "Trevor, I am going to ask you a question in front of witnesses. If you lie, I will file the second thing this week. If you tell the truth, we can talk about how the next 12 months of your life go. Did you know that Mom and Dad were taking money out of Grandpa's trust every month and putting it into your business account?" Trevor did not answer. I said, "Trevor, $8,500 a month, 34 months, $289,000, every wire tagged as a distribution to a beneficiary. The beneficiary is you. Did you know?" Trevor's mouth opened. It closed. He looked at Dad. Dad was still looking at the wine glass on the tablecloth. Trevor looked at Mom. Mom was looking at the floor by her own foot. Trevor was alone in this for the first time in his life. He said, "I thought it was a family gift." I said, "A family gift for 34 months in a row, wired at the same time every month, always after a distribution request signed by a man who cannot remember his own kitchen. You thought it was a family gift." Trevor said, "Miles," I said, "that is not an answer." He did not have another one. That was when my grandmother walked in. I want to be careful with this scene. My grandmother is 81 years old. She has been married to William Booker for 59 years. She has been quiet in this family for a very long time. Quiet is not the same as gone. Grandma Eleanor came out of the elevator on the arm of a nurse from Willamart named Marta. Marta has worked with Grandpa for 11 months. Marta was the person who called me last November and said, "Mr. Booker, your father was here today with a document. He asked me to help your grandfather hold a pen. I told him I could not. He asked me to sign as a witness. I told him I could not. He got angry. I filed a report. I thought you should know." That was the phone call that started all of this. That was the phone call that made me open a case. Grandma Eleanor walked to our table with her hand on Marta's forearm. She wore the good coat, the one from her wedding anniversary. She had put on her lipstick. She had done her hair. She looked at me first. She looked at my father second. She did not look at my mother at all. She said, "Vincent, stand up." My father did not stand up. She said, "Vincent, You will stand up when your mother-in-law is standing. My father stood up. His legs took a second. His napkin fell off his lap, and he did not pick it up. Grandma Eleanor did not sit down. She stood next to my chair. Marta stood 2 steps back. Marta had a phone in her hand, and the camera was open. I had asked her to keep it open. She would not record unless something happened that needed recording. So far, everything had needed recording. Grandma Eleanor put her hand on my shoulder. Her hand was small and warm and steady. She said, when Miles was 12, William took him into the office and gave him that pen. I was in the doorway. I watched. William said, learn to sign your name so no one else can copy it. I saved that day. I wrote it down in my daybook. I wrote down what William was wearing. I wrote down that Miles was wearing a blue shirt with a small hole at the collar because his mother would not buy him a new one. I wrote down that William gave him the pen because he said, this one is the watcher. And the watchers are the ones who keep families honest. She turned to my mother. She looked at my mother for a full 5 seconds. My mother did not lift her head. Marjorie, Grandma Eleanor said, you copied a dead man's habits onto a living man's paper. William is not dead, but you tried to bury him early so you could spend what was still his. My mother's fingers went to her mouth. They stayed there. I have been William's power of attorney since the 2nd week of March, Grandma Eleanor said. You told the family I was too old and too fragile to hold it. William disagreed with you before he lost himself. He signed the paperwork in front of the same Cleveland lawyer who did the trust protector clause. Miles has the copy. So do I. So does the Ohio State Attorney General's Elder Financial Abuse Unit as of yesterday at 4 p.m. The man in the gray suit at the other table said, out loud, without meaning to, Jesus. The waiter had come back with a pitcher of water. He set it on a serving stand and did not step closer. Grandma Eleanor said, Vincent, your visits to Willowmark are revoked as of this morning. Marjorie, yours also. Trevor, yours were never scheduled because you never came. That is the last thing William said to me while he still knew who Trevor was. He said, the boy has not come once. Trevor's chin went down. He did not raise it back up for a long time. Now I need to tell you about the 3 things that happened over the next 9 days. Because a public confrontation is a beginning, not an end. The end is what happens when the door closes and the person on the wrong side of it has to keep living. The first thing happened on a Tuesday morning at 10. My father had bought a 2023 Range Rover in April with a check written from the trust distribution account, $92,000. He drove it to work every day. He parked it in his numbered spot at the medical supply company he had run for 22 years. On Tuesday morning at 10, a repo truck pulled into the lot. My father was in a management meeting on the 2nd floor. His secretary knocked on the conference room door. He came out. She said, there is a man downstairs with a hook and a clipboard. He went down. He tried to explain. The man with the clipboard said, sir, the funds used to purchase this vehicle are being clawed back under a probate order. I have the paperwork. If you would like to speak to your attorney, I will wait 10 minutes for you to make the call. My father stood in the parking lot in his shirt and tie and watched his own car go up on the hook. 3 of his employees watched from the window. One of them told me later. The repo truck went out of the lot and it went south. My father walked back inside and did not finish the meeting. The second thing happened on a Thursday evening in a group chat my mother had run for the extended family for 12 years. 42 people were in the chat. Aunts, cousins, 2 church friends, old neighbors. She had posted a photo the night of the rooftop dinner. It was a photo of Trevor and Heather and me and her and Dad taken by the waiter before the food came, all of us smiling. The city lights behind us. The caption said, so blessed to secure this family's future on my son's 35th. On Thursday evening, my grandmother sent one message into that chat. Not many words. She wrote, the trust William built is now in Miles's hands, where William intended it to be. Marjorie's photograph does not reflect what happened at that dinner. Anyone with questions can call me at home. That was all. She did not accuse. She did not name. She let the message sit. It sat for 11 minutes. Then someone left the chat. Then 2 more people left. By 8 p.m., 17 people had left the chat. My mother's phone did not receive a single reply. Not one. Not from her sister, not from her best friend of 30 years, not from the neighbor she went to church with. The chat that had been the center of my mother's social world for 12 years went silent and stayed silent. She kept opening it. She kept refreshing it. There was nothing to refresh. The third thing happened at 2:15 in the morning on a Friday. I know it happened at 2:15 because my grandmother told me the next day. My mother had been at Willowmark that afternoon trying to get in through the family entrance. The staff had turned her away. She had gone home. She had gone to bed. At some point, she had gotten back up. My father woke up alone in their bed at 2:15 and could not find her. He found her sitting on the concrete floor of the garage next to the empty space where the Range Rover had been. She was in her nightgown. She was not crying. She was looking at the empty rectangle of concrete where the tires had left their marks. Her hands were flat on her thighs, and she was rocking a little bit. My father tried to help her up. She said, without looking at him, "Vincent, where does it start? If you can find where it starts, tell me. I cannot find it." My father did not have an answer. He sat down on the concrete next to her. That is where they were when the sun came up. My grandmother heard about this from my father's own sister, Aunt Yvonne, who had gone to the house Friday morning and rung the bell for 12 minutes before letting herself in with the key she had had since 1998. None of this is a summary. All of this is what happened. Trevor came to my apartment on the 9th day. He came at 9 at night. He rang the buzzer. I looked at him on the small screen. His hair had not been washed. His jacket was not buttoned. He was holding an envelope. Not a nice envelope. A number 10 from a home supply drawer. I went down. He said, "Miles, I brought you something. It is $12,000. It is what I had in the safe. Take it. Please, just take it and call this off. Mom is not sleeping. Dad has stopped talking. Heather has taken our son and gone to her sister's house in Michigan. She did not tell me for how long. Please, we are brothers." $12,000 against $289,000 skimmed, against $1.9 million restored, against 59 years of a marriage sitting on a concrete floor at 2 a.m. Trevor's arithmetic had never been very good. I looked at him. I looked at the envelope. I almost took it, for 1 second, for the sake of the boy I had grown up next to, who had once shared a room with me and a bunk bed and a small nightlight shaped like a fire truck. I did not take it. I did not raise my voice. I did not explain. I stepped back and I closed the door. I put my key in the lock and I turned it. I did not look at him through the peephole. I walked back up the stairs to my apartment. That is what I did. I did not use any words. Grandpa William had told me once, when I was 15, a closed door is a whole sentence. Sometimes it is a whole paragraph. He was right. Trevor stood in the vestibule for 11 minutes. My neighbor across the hall told me the next morning. She had heard him breathing. He left at 9:11. He got in his truck. He sat in his truck for another 6 minutes. Then he drove away. His business closed the next Monday. The commercial lease had been in his father's name, guaranteed by the trust distribution account. The account was closed. The lease was in default. The landlord posted a sign in the window. Trevor had not paid his employees for 2 weeks. There were 3 employees. One of them called my grandmother because she remembered my grandmother from a Christmas party in 2015. My grandmother wired that woman her back pay from her own account. $3,200. She did not ask me first. She did not need to. If this is the story you needed to hear this week, hit subscribe to Family Secret Tales. There is one more scene, and it is the only one that matters. I go to Willowmark on Tuesdays and Saturdays. That has not changed. What changed is who is with me. On the first Saturday after the rooftop, Grandma Eleanor asked if I would drive her. She wanted to see William in the garden. Willowmark has a courtyard on the east side with a low brick wall and 3 benches and a small fountain that runs from May to October. The morning I am about to describe was cool, but not cold. The sun was just up. The staff had wheeled Grandpa William out to the bench nearest the fountain with a blanket over his knees and a cup of tea in his hand that he was not drinking. Marta was standing a few feet back, giving us space, watching in case. Grandma Eleanor sat down next to Grandpa William. She put her hand on the blanket over his knee. He looked at her hand. He did not know it was her hand, but he did not pull his knee away. That is a thing that meant a lot to her. I sat on the bench across from them. Between us was a small wooden garden table with a folded document on it and my Parker 51 pen laid across the document like a paperweight. The document was the acceptance of trusteeship for the Reformed Trust. It required my signature in ink, in the presence of two witnesses. Grandma Eleanor was one witness. Marta was the other. I took the cap off the pen. The smell of the ink came up. Grandpa William's head turned. He did not turn it fast. He turned it slowly. The way he turns things now. His eyes went to my hand. His eyes went to the barrel of the pen. He looked at the pen for a long time. He said, "That was mine." His voice was clear. I said, "Yes, Grandpa. It was yours. You gave it to me." He said, "Good." Then he looked out at the fountain and he went back to wherever he goes. I signed the acceptance of trusteeship. My hand did not shake. The upstroke on the M pressed cleanly. I lifted the pen between the L and the B of my last name, because I have been lifting since I was 12 and I will live for the rest of my life. Grandma Eleanor signed as witness. Marta signed as witness. I capped the pen. I set it down on the garden table. The ink took 30 seconds to dry in the morning air. It always takes 30 seconds. Waterman's Serenity Blue. Grandpa's Pacific Blue. Grandma Eleanor poured herself a cup of tea from the small thermos she had brought. She poured a second cup and held it in her lap for a while and then drank that one too. She did not say anything for maybe 15 minutes. Neither did I. Grandpa watched the fountain. A robin came down to the wall and looked at us and went again. The sun moved up half an inch. That was all. Somewhere across town, my mother was sitting at her kitchen table with the family group chat open on her phone and no new messages in it. Somewhere my father was on the second floor deck of a house he had refinanced twice, staring at the empty rectangle in the garage where a Range Rover used to be, calling his lawyer for the fourth time that morning and getting sent to voicemail. Trevor's shop had a red for lease sign in the window, and the address had been added to a small article on page 7 of the local business paper. His wife was 700 miles away in a house in Michigan she had grown up in. His father-in-law had answered her phone yesterday when Trevor called and said, "She will call you when she is ready, and not before." At Willowmark, in the garden, my grandfather looked at the fountain, and my grandmother looked at my grandfather, and I looked at the pen drying on the table, and none of us said anything, because there was nothing to say. Because the family that mattered had never needed very many words. Grandpa William had told me once, when I was 12, that a name written correctly on a piece of paper is a small thing that holds a large thing. He said the large thing was trust. He said the paper was only the visible part of it. He said, the ink dries in 30 seconds, but the promise takes a lifetime. The ink was drying. The promise was already a lifetime old. I capped the pen. I put it in the fabric loop inside my forensic case. I closed the brass latch. I looked at Grandma. She looked at me. She poured a third cup of tea, and this one she held out to me across the little wooden table. I took it. The tea was warm. The morning was cool. The fountain was running. And on the north side of the city, in a house on the corner of Maple and Cavendish, a porch light that had been on since 1994 was switched off, because there was no one coming home who still had a key. If this story earned your attention today, subscribe to Family Secret Tales and share it with the one person in your life who needs to hear that watching is not the same as waiting. The watchers are the ones who keep families honest. My grandfather told me so. The pen was in the case. The case was in my lap. The tea in my hand was warm.